Hey Eurovision fans, the producers have decided the running order of semi-final number 1 of Eurovision 2025. I'm going to give you my deep dive analysis of all the placements and see who are the winners and who are the losers. So, let's kiki. Hi, my name is Tom. I'm an Irish Eurovision analyst, and you can find all of this stuff on my Eurovision channel. So a little bit of a surprise that the draw was released today, because usually we get the all songs released video. All the songs competing are put into one compilation video, and then usually a week after we get the running order. This year, it was only one day after that video. So my guess is that someone or something was late in getting that compilation video ready. Maybe there was a delay. Maybe someone wanted to make a small change, and because of that, they have to release the running order straight afterwards. In case you don't know, since 2013, the running order has been decided by the producers. The countries are drawn into the first half or the second half. Then the producers can organize the songs however they want to give what they think will be the most entertaining show possible. Just a small reminder that voting won't be open from the start of the semi-final. That is something I presume they're going to be doing for the final. It appears the producers' logic in the final, though, is that because you've seen all the songs in the semi-final being performed already, because the automatic qualifiers perform there as well, you're able to vote right from the start, whereas that isn't the same case for the semi-final. So voting will open after the last song has performed. So there's a little bit of a difference there from the final. We also have the 3 automatic qualifiers performing as well. In case you don't know, that's a new thing that was added last year. Okay, so let's get to it. So opening up the show is Iceland. First of all, let me just explain what all these columns are. This first column is qualification streak, how many qualifications or non-qualifications that country has had in a row. For example, Iceland have not qualified in the last 2 contests, so they are -2, whereas Sweden have qualified in the last 10 contests, so they're +10. This second column, 16-year qualification percentage, is what percentage of the time has that country qualified in the last 16 years. And finally, the last column is slot qualification percentage, and that is what percentage of countries in that slot have qualified in the last 16 years. Why 16 years? That is when the 2 semi-final systems started in 2008. Okay, so let's start off with Iceland. This was a huge surprise. In case you don't know, the producers started deciding the running order in 2013. And since then, in the semi-finals, they have never picked a song that is fully non-English to open the semi-final ever. This is the first time. So this is really, really huge. You know, when I was doing my predictions, I just assumed they will continue that 12-year pattern over 24 semi-finals and pick another English song. For example, Estonia, worst case scenario, Poland. But no, they are breaking with tradition, breaking this pattern. This is really, really cool to see. I think this is indicative of the modern contest. We've seen that they've been doing so well recently in the top 10 and with qualifications. So I think the producers are just realizing that people don't mind if a song is not in English. It's not that big a deal. This is such a wonderful opening song. Super joyous, super happy, incredible energy. There's going to be a huge party on the stage. And you know, this is really fabulous for Vibe to be opening up the entirety of the Eurovision 2025 contest. So I think they're up to it. I think they're super energetic lads. You know, Iceland are on this 2 non-qualification streak. This is a really good opportunity for them to be a little bit of a shock and turn that around. You can see actually the qualification percentage for the first slot is 53%. So it's not as bad as you'd think. I think a lot of people tune in to see the start of Eurovision. And if we just look at the last 5 years, 60% of countries in the opening slot have qualified. So it's definitely doable for Iceland. This is going to be a really fun start to the show. Okay, in the number 2 slot, we have Justina singing Gaia. Now, in case you don't know, in 1995, the last time that she competed in the contest, she was drawn first in the running order. So some people were thinking they might be a little bit shady and put her first again. I'm glad that they didn't. But then the second most shady place to put her would be slot number 2. So the poor woman has opened the show. She's been in the number 2 slot. If they put her in the number 3 slot in the final, I think that there's going to be a riot in Warsaw, and I'm going to join that riot because it would be crazy. But yes, a little bit unfortunate to see this. When I was doing my predictions, I thought that they would want to spread the women out because we've only got 4 women competing in the semi-final. From this running order, it does not look like that's a priority at all. They've put her in the death slot. So second in the running order has historically been called the death slot. It lost that title for a little bit because the 3rd running order slot became the worst in terms of qualification percentage. But last year, both songs in slot number 3 qualified. So because of that, Slot number 2 is back to being the death slot. It has reclaimed its throne as the deathiest slot in the running order. Only 41% qualification rate. This is really unfortunate for Gaia. Also strange for me as well, because Poland has the largest population of anyone competing in the semi-finals. So I find it a little bit odd that they decided to put it early. For me, this is a crazy decision. Putting such a huge country early, using up one of your very few female artists so early as well, not spreading them out. You know, I would have thought they'd want to curry some favor with Poland, considering that they are like theoretically next in line to be the next big 5 country. Not only that, but they put the only other song that's remotely like her melody in the semi-final very close to her as well. So this is a super shady placement for Poland by the producers. Maybe it'll make sense when we see the staging. Maybe there's a color palette thing going on that this is the best slot for it. I still think that Justyna can make it. I think she's got a great package, incredible performer. But I also think that everything possible that could have gone wrong for Poland in the running order went wrong. Like, I don't think this could be any worse for them. But I'm hoping that Polish Jasper is going to turn out for her. I think she deserves to be in the final. So fingers crossed, this will not defeat Justyna. Okay, in the third running order slot, we have our first full English song, and that is Clemens singing How Much Time Do We Have Left. Slovenia are on a +2 qualification streak, but that was with an internal selection. This is them going back to their national final method. In the last 16 years, Slovenia are 44%, which is below the average of 57% for everybody. And their slot has a 44% qualification rate. Like I said, it used to be the deathiest slot, but then last year, Sylvester Belt and Marino both qualified from third in the running order. So they undeathified it a little bit. But yeah, this is looking tough for Slovenia. I'm not saying that they're out. I still think that the song is pretty unique within the semi-final. You know, it's a male ballad, and the other main male ballad is Serbia in semi-final number 2, which I'll hopefully get that video up pretty soon after this one. I don't think he's out. I still think he's got a chance to surprise. You know, last year Don's was a big surprise with the male ballad, although he was much later in the running order. He was in the middle. So this is a tough draw for Slovenia. In between Poland and Estonia, I feel like there's a little bit of spreading out between this, Ukraine, and Portugal. I think they wanted to spread out the 3 mellow songs as much as possible. And unfortunately, Slovenia seemed to have drawn the short straw by going early. Okay, in semi-final running order slot number 4, we have Estonia. It's Tommy Cash singing Espresso Macchiato. This was one of the songs I thought could open the show. In the end, I think one of the decisions to put in Iceland over Tommy Cash is the fact that he's one of the big established artists this year. So probably want to showing a little bit of respect to that. Also, this 4th slot in recent years has become one of the key slots for producers. If we look at the qualification rate for it in the last 5 years, it's actually 80%. And the only 2 songs that didn't qualify from this 4th slot were Sudden Lights Latvia, which came 11th, super close, and also Tulia from Poland, who did technically qualify because one of the jurors put her scores in back to front. If she put it in correctly, Tulia would have been 10th. So technically you could say it's a 90% qualification rate from the 4th slot in the last 5 years. So this isn't doom and gloom. Some people saying to me when talking about Latvia, who were in slot number 4 in semi-final number 2, they're concerned about that. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. You can definitely qualify from this 4th slot. I think the pattern that producers are doing in recent years is they want to put something strong first, and then they don't care so much who's in slots number 2 and 3, but then they want another peak at song number 4. So I think that they're using Tommy Cash as a little bit of a draw, wanting to show deference to him that he's one of the more established artists. I think they want this to be like kind of one of the highlights of the early show. Estonia on a 3 qualification streak and 63% in the last 16 years, which is above average. I think that this is going to be +4 for Estonia, which is really incredible when you consider that they have just under 1.4 million people. Cyprus as well, another country with a really great qualification streak despite a smaller population than others. Yeah, this is a cool opening 4. We've got diversity here. We've got a bit of a club banger with Iceland. Then we've got a little bit of an ethnic diva bop with Poland, beautiful ballad with Slovenia, and then this quirky kind of comedy from Estonia. So this is a really cool variety in the first 4 songs, kind of giving a smorgasbord for the casual Eurovision fan who won't recognize any of these songs. Okay, in the 5th running order slot, we have Spain. Now I'm counting the automatic qualifiers in the running order slots. That's just a decision I've made. For me, slots are what is the amount of time that's passed since the opening of the show, and these automatic qualifiers are time that's passed. So I'm including them. Theoretically, you could say that Ukraine is in slot 5 and add it into those statistics. That's just the choice that I've made. Another method is using percentages. I've looked at all the methods, and this, I think, is the simplest way to talk about it. So first automatic qualifier is Melody representing Spain. She's taking up the 5th slot. I think this is super shady on Poland. Like, the most similar song to Poland is Spain. So to dump Poland in the death spot and then put in Spain as the automatic qualifier for this half, I think is super, super shady. They could have put Spain in the second half and put Switzerland in here as well, which wouldn't have clashed with Poland at all. Also, Switzerland have a fantastic draw in the final, so I think putting themselves earlier would have been a little bit more fair. You know, we got a bad draw in the semis. We've got a good draw in the final. I'm not mad on this decision, to be honest. Is it better that there's a performance similar to Gaia early, or is it better if it's later on? Theoretically, you could say if it's later on, well, then it might erase the memory of Poland, whereas them being closer together, maybe it's less likely to completely overshadow Poland. So maybe it's to our advantage. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But, you know, I was hoping that Poland would be 6th or 7th and then have Spain far away so that it could really be unique on its own. She's still super unique in the first half, but it just takes away a little bit of the specialness. I think it's a little bit of a shame for Melody as well, because I think if she was in the second half, she also would have shined more. Both of these women have incredible vocals, super energetic performances, big pop diva energy. So yeah, I want them both to shine. But hopefully Spain being here won't overshadow Poland. And maybe this means that Spain might be getting a better running order in the final as well, which will really, really help them in trying to get to the left side of the scoreboard. And Melody is going to be the last female artist we see for quite a long time. There is a large break, 8 songs until we finally get to see another female singer. In the 6th running order slot, we have Ukraine with a plus 14 qualification streak. Yes, that is 100% absolutely incredible and totally deserved. Ukraine are so amazing at Eurovision. Beautiful staging, beautiful songs, beautiful artists. The slot they're in has a 61% qualification rate, which is the best in this first half. Although if you look just at the last 6 years, that's actually 44%. Still, I think that Ukraine are going to be pretty solidly through. They've been put in what some people would describe as an unenviable slot of being before Sweden. I think that Ukraine will qualify from any slot, not just from the solidarity support, also because this is a very unique, wonderful song with a very special sound. Nobody else sounds like them in the semi-finals. We always see an elevation from staging in them. I think being later in the first half is going to help. This is an almost definite plus 15 qualification streak for him. My God, it's really incredible. In the 7th running order slot, we have Sweden. So I think this is an acknowledgement from the producers that this is one of the favorites to win. They've put it pretty much as late as possible. I'm wondering, could there be an ad break, possibly after Ukraine? Because maybe Ukraine will have their garden on stage and then they bring that off, and then Sweden bring on their sauna. Or there could be an ad after Sweden where the sauna is pushed off and Portugal bring in all their instruments. In case you don't know, production team have around 30 to 40 seconds to get everything off stage and then the next artist staging on. It's a really, really quick turnaround. If you've ever been to Eurovision, it's one of the fascinating things to watch when the postcard is going on, watching all these people run onto stage like frantic ants and pull everything apart. It's really, really incredible. So yes, I'm imagining this ad break will probably be between 6 and 7 or 7 and 8. But yeah, Sweden could be absolutely anywhere and they're going to qualify. This is one of the favorites to win. I think it's incredibly likely it wins the televote for the semi-final. Add on to that Sweden's 92% qualification rate in the last 16 years. The only person who didn't qualify was poor Anna Bergendahl. Even though technically Charlotte Pirelli is the one who got the worst semi-final result ever, coming 12th, she still qualified because of a technicality. So add all those ingredients in together, this is definitely qualifying. And no matter what they draw for the final, I think that they're going to be put as late as possible, kind of 10, 11 onwards, to ensure that they have a chance to win the contest. Okay, in the 8th slot, we have Napa singing Deslocado for Portugal. I have filmed my reaction to this. I'm editing it and I'll publish it pretty soon. Could it be that the Swedish sauna needs to be wheeled off and then all of Portugal's instruments are coming on? That could be one of the reasons why Portugal have been given such a late draw, because this could just be a practical thing of we need as much time to make that transition. You know, Portugal obviously complements Sweden pretty well. You know, we have this craziness from Sweden and then we have Portugal afterwards. I saw a lot of people lamenting that this is really bad for Portugal. I don't know if I fully agree. I understand that going after the favorite is not something ideal, On the flip side, I still don't think it's worse than going second. You know, if they're second at the start of the show, I think they're more likely to be forgotten. And they still have Sweden coming up after them. You know, even if they do an amazing performance in slot number 2 and people love them, Sweden's still going to come afterward. It can still wipe out the memory of them no matter where it's placed. I think Portugal's target demographic is different from Sweden anyway. I don't think that the two songs particularly overlap. I always think that they were going to have different demographics. Portugal was always going to follow a happy upbeat song, either Iceland or Estonia or Sweden. Arguably, it got the worst one, but it's also as late as possible. So I think there's positives and negatives. I personally think this increases their chance of qualifying a little bit more. Also because I think viewership around Sweden is going to peak. There's going to be lots and lots of people watching. If the ad break is after Sweden, that will affect it a little bit. You know, little people wander around, go to the toilet, are late to come back. If the ad break is before Sweden, well, then I think there's going to be big viewership for Portugal, and that actually could help them a little bit. So there's a little bit of an if attached to when is the ad break. Okay, let's take a step back and look at this half in general. Big news, Iceland, the first non-English song to open a semi-final ever since the producers started deciding the running order in 2013. We can see that the 3 fun songs are spread out. Iceland, Estonia, Sweden, 1, 4, 7. As I expected, although I got the order mixed up. We can see the mellower songs split up as well. Slovenia, Ukraine, and Portugal. So we can see that tempo is a big important thing in this running order. We can see that the ladies are a little bit split up as well. Poland in 2, Spain in 5. Otherwise, this first half is just all men. Keep in mind there's lots of stuff we don't know, like what are the color palettes, which props are being used, where are the ad breaks. So maybe it'll all make a little bit more sense when we see the final semi-final. Okay, let's go to the second half, which has 10 countries in it. So there's an 8-10 split, which we also had last year as well. And opening up the second half is Norway with their 7 qualification streak. 87% qualification rate for them in the last 16 years. Those 2 non-qualifications were Stella Mwangi in 2011 and Agneta in 2016. But since Agneta, they've had 7 qualifications in a row. And we can see this 9th slot has a 63% qualification rate. In the last 5 years, it's actually 70%. So a really good historical slot for them. Following on from Portugal, I think it's going to be a good contrast. Anyone who thought that Portugal was a little bit too sleepy or a bit too indie, this has got that pure pop, high energy dance feel. Norway being earliest within the second half draw, obviously not ideal, but Norway also following 3 bands. Zifferblatt 3 men, Sweden, Kai 3 men, and then Portugal 5 men. So 3 all-male bands. Kyle would just be something a little bit different. I think that he will pop a bit here, but he needs to make sure that he's memorable because there's a lot of male artists coming up after him who I feel are very much in his genre. So yes, I think this dents Norway's qualifications chances a little bit, but you don't get an 87% qualification record out of nowhere. That is consistency in sending good artists, good song. It's a delegation that knows how to get across the line. So I still think this has got a good shot, but yes, obviously if this had been 16th, 17th, 18th, that would have helped a lot. In the 10th slot for Belgium, we have Red Sebastian. So not too far off where they were last year when they non-qualified. This is not a great draw for Belgium. I think they're one of the big losers from the semi-final along with Poland. They've got a 50% qualification rate in the last 16 years. This slot has a 58% chance. If you look at the last 5 years though, this slot has a 44% qualification rate, which is the lowest in the last 5 years out of anyone in the second half. It's coming after Norway, which has some similarities with it. On top of that, Belgium's big clash rival, I think, is Cyprus, which has been drawn last. It's good that they're far away from each other, but Belgium comes first. Cyprus has the last word. Also, the fact that Cyprus has been drawn last implies to me that they have some big staging. I think it's going to be very trendy this year to say that Belgium's a shock non-qualifier because they were first in the odds. You know, I think everyone wants to predict that storyline that they were first in the odds and they didn't qualify. I definitely still think they can make it. I just think their job is a little bit harder, being after Norway so far before Cyprus, and possibly their biggest rival's staging is bigger than theirs is. I wonder, is he going to have the up-down prop? Because I don't think we're going to have an ad break here again. I imagine the next ad break will be a little bit later. So this implies to me that either it's very easy for them to get his big rigging stage on, or they've decided to get rid of it. You know, potentially there's an ad break where his thing is wheeled on and then they put an ad break and then Italy's piano is brought on. I just feel like that ad break is too soon after the previous one, which I'm guessing is somewhere around Sweden. I would imagine there's no ad, and they somehow worked out that this transition between Belgium and Italy is doable within 30 seconds. Okay, in 11th slot, we have Italy. And it's kind of nice that they've given the worst slot in the last 16 years with only a 42% qualification rate, which is the second worst out of the entire semi-final. In the last 6 years, it's 56%, so it's been a little bit better recently. But they've decided to give that slot to Italy, so we don't have to worry about that slot percentage getting even worse. As I said before, I'm wondering, are they going to be bringing on Italy's piano or not? I think this contrasts really well with Belgium. I don't think it's going to overshadow it at all. So that's one good thing for Belgium. And this will pop. I think this will really pop between Belgium and Azerbaijan. Okay, in the 12th slot, we have Mama Gama for Azerbaijan, who are on a 2 non-qualification streak. Now, you might be surprised to see that they have an 80% qualification rate. Keep in mind, they qualified every single year until 2018. 2018 was a year of calamity where Azerbaijan, Romania, and Russia, all three of them lost their 100% qualification streak, leaving only Ukraine and now also Luxembourg since they rejoined the contest. So yeah, Azerbaijan used to be very good at qualifying. They've got another pretty decent draw again this year. Last year, they were also in the second half, but they couldn't convert that either. Actually, they've been second half 3 years in a row now. Their slot has a 59% qualification rate, which is the third worst in the half, but it's still higher than most of the slots in the first half. In case you're wondering, there is an 11% better chance of qualifying from the second half than the first half in the last 16 years. Yeah, I think this is okay for Azerbaijan. I think it's going to be pretty good after Italy coming before San Marino. San Marino, I think, might upstage it a tiny bit because San Marino is probably a little bit more fun. But then also it's an English song sandwiched between 2 Italian songs. So that'll help it pop a little bit as well. I have to wait and see what the staging is going to be. But like, this is a qualifiable slot. It's up to Azerbaijan now to convert and qualify. I don't really think there's any excuses because this is a pretty decent running order for them. In the 13th slot, we have Gabri Ponti for San Marino. San Marino on a 3 non-qualification streak. Not too surprising considering that it is the smallest country in the competition. And they have only a 21% qualification streak overall. Those 3 qualifications are Senhit, Adrenalina, Serhat, Say Na Na Na, and of course, Queen Valentina Moneta, when she qualified on her 3rd attempt. Their running order slot has a 63% qualification rate. So this is pretty decent for them. A lot of people thinking that they might close the show. They did close the show with Serhat Say Na Na Na, but I feel like that was possibly because it had a huge Turkish diaspora, is quite large. You know, this will have a lot of Italian interest. So it could have been a really fun close to the show. Possibly this is an indication that the show wasn't particularly wow. It might just be like a bit of a party on the stage, but nothing really incredible is going to happen. So that's an indicator for me. The staging isn't going to change too much from San Remo or the San Marino national final. In the 14th slot, finally, after 8 songs, we have a female vocalist. It's Chocoda Electronica for Albania. I think this is a really, really good slot for them. I think anyone who's watching going, are there any women in Europe, are going to see Beatrice and she's going to absolutely give them life with her fabulous energy, beautiful vocals. I think this is really, really good for Albania. You know, the darkness of it is going to pop with San Marino before and Netherlands afterwards. So it's really complementary. It contrasts really well. She's really going to stand out. I think Albanian diaspora is really going to turn out for this. Albania on a 1 non-qualification streak, but you know, like last year, it wasn't a surprise they didn't qualify. Albania have qualified for the last 6 years. Overall, this slot has a 74% qualification rate. And in the last 6 years, this slot has a 78% qualification rate. So really, really strong placement for them. The only female vocalist who's competing for a qualification spot in the second half. This is really unique for so many different reasons. Really great running order for them. The only thing I think could have been better would be to close, but it's not really a typical closing song. So not too surprising. Great running order for Albania. Possibly the producers giving them a nice slot because they dumped them in second so often. So trying to curry a little bit of favor. In the 15 running order slot, we have the Netherlands. It's Claude singing C'est la vie. Netherlands on a 1 qualification streak. This slot is 66. You might be surprised to see Netherlands are only 53% qualification in the last 16 years. Keep in mind they had that 8 non-qualification streak in the noughties and the early 10s before they turned things around in 2013. They're arguably a bit of a powerhouse now. They used to be very weak. That's why their qualification rate is so low. This is really, really good for them. Again, this happy, joyful song really pops between Albania, which is beautiful but slightly dark, and Marco for Croatia, who's also got a dark feel as well. This is a ray of sunshine between 2 darker songs. Once I saw Belgium and San Marino were already drawn, I thought maybe they might put Netherlands last again as a little bit of a, we're sorry for what happened last year. I think they don't want to put a country back to back in the best slot 2 years in a row. I think this will be a very solid qualification for Netherlands to get them back on a +2 streak. In the 16th slot, this is one of my biggest surprises of the semi-final, what is Croatia. Marco with Poison Cake. Now, I'm wondering, why have they put him so late? Is this a little bit of favor because of what happened last year? Has he got a little bit of a trick up his sleeve? Myself and a lot of people were expecting this to be a little bit early in the semi-final, because if you look historically, they tend to put the less popular or what could be considered the weaker songs earlier on in the semi-final, but this is really, really late. A lot of people are thinking that this doesn't have a chance to qualify. For me, the chances have gone up. Now, I'm not saying it's going to qualify. I'll talk about that when I do my qualifier prediction video, but I think the chances have gone up, definitely a few percent, because it is so late. Viewership, in my opinion, goes up and up the later on in the semi-final that we are. I think that's one of the reasons why second half songs have a +11% chance of qualifying. So this is really, really good news for Croatia. They're on a 2 qualification streak. Croatians have really got super invested in Eurovision. He's been getting a lot of slack. People criticizing him in the package, saying it's not strong enough. So it would be really wonderful if he could take advantage of this bit of good luck and turn this into a qualification, get Croatia their 3rd in a row, because we really, really want as many countries from Southeast Europe as possible. So this for me is a little bit of an olive branch from the producers, maybe recognizing we do want representation from Southeast Europe in the final. We're going to give Croatia a good slot. You know, Slovenia didn't get a great slot. They're number 3. Maybe this is them balancing that out a little bit. But I'm really happy for Marco. I really hope that he can just scrape into the final. I think if he qualifies, he'll be so delighted. I don't think he'll care about what happens in the final at all. This slot has a 62% qualification rate, and in the last 6 years, it's 88%. So that's a pretty good sign. You know, being so late, you've got a great opportunity. They just need to grab it. Croatian delegation have been staging well recently. Hopefully they can keep that up. In the 17th slot, we have Switzerland. It's Zoe. Now, I think this is a tiny bit shady because Switzerland have already got an extremely good running order in the final. They're 19th. In case you don't know, the host country randomly draws their running order slot. Last year, Sweden drew 1st. This year, Switzerland drew 19th. I think if you've got such a good running order slot in the final, the polite thing to do is put yourself a little bit earlier in the semifinals. I just think it's a little bit of balancing, not trying to make it look like you're favoring your own country too much. Plus, I think that putting Switzerland in the first half would have been good with all the fun we have with Iceland, Sweden, and Estonia. It also wouldn't overshadow Poland as much. This for me is a little bit shady, giving themselves like a really pretty much the latest they can be without causing huge amount of controversy. Like they couldn't put her last because it is not a closing song at all. In case you don't know, the closing song is usually upbeat, it's fun, it's dramatic, it's really wild and ends the party on a really high note, but they put themselves as late as possible. So I don't know, maybe there's a reason for it. Like this does help Croatia and Cyprus pop because it's so different, but hosts giving themselves the best slot they can possibly give, don't think really massively helps with bias, but that's what they've decided on. Maybe when we see the package, we'll know why. Also keep in mind that Switzerland's staging is going to be super minimalist. We've seen her already perform at the pre-parties. It was very minimalist there. I think it's going to be super minimalist on the stage as well, because that would make sense with the mood of the song. So maybe they want something that is really, really easy to clean off the stage to get ready for Cyprus next, because maybe Cyprus have something complicated. So there could also be a practical reason for it. You know, having said that, I don't think Albania's staging is going to be complex, or Azerbaijan. I'm sure there are other simple stages that could have gone before. In any case, Switzerland will be in slot number 17, which means the closer of semi-final number 1, huge surprise to me and a lot of people, is Cyprus, a song that many people weren't thinking of. It wasn't really on their radar. Their staging this year is being done by Sergio Hayen, and I believe that he's possibly come up with something super wide that the producers have decided we want to close the show with this. It's already a pretty upbeat song, so I think that it already fit the criteria for being kind of energetic. This for me indicates that the staging's got something a little bit wow about it, that they want to put it as the show closer. Potentially also thinking that if they put this last, then they could put it first in the final, because it would be good opener. You know, Cyprus do send a lot of upbeat, fun, pop divas. And what's a male diva? Diva dude? I don't know. So yes, that is one of the side effects of them sending this type of song, is that it is the perfect opener. Cyprus open a lot. But yeah, I was really surprised. You know, when I did my prediction video, I guessed it would be Belgium. The second biggest guess was San Marino. I think maybe a couple of people guessed Cyprus, but not very many. So this was a huge shock. So I'm excited now to see this staging. I have to admit that I was thinking of Cyprus as a borderline no qualifier. And now I'm kind of expecting it to be a borderline yes or likely yes. Obviously, we need to wait and see the staging. Maybe it's not that special. Maybe it's just that they have a big ass prop and they want as much time to take the prop off the stage. And maybe we're going to get a little bit of a letdown when we see it. But one thing's for sure, I'm significantly more interested to see this now than I was before the running order was announced. So really, really fun, surprising closer to semi-final number 1, Theo Evan. Okay, let's take a step back and look at this second half. In my prediction video, I was talking about how they wanted to separate all these dark pop boys. So Belgium's in 10th, Croatia in 16th, Cyprus in 18th. Not as much separation from Cyprus and Croatia as I expected. Maybe their staging does already look quite different. We have 2 female artists in slot 14 and slot 17. So we have this huge gap between Melody in slot number 5 and Shkodra Elektronika in slot number 14. So there are going to be 8 songs with only male artists. We have female backup singers for Ukraine, but obviously the main focus is going to be on Zifferblatt. I'm going to be curious to see, do casuals notice that we go through such a long period with no female artists, or are they generally not going to care? That's one of the biggest takeaways for me from this running order, is that spending at the women doesn't seem to be that important, because if it did, they would have put Poland later, they would have put someone in the middle. This isn't really spending, it's kind of like bookmarking at either end. We've got separation of the joyful songs. Azerbaijan, Netherlands and Norway are spread out as well. Cool mellow moments, Ukraine, Portugal, Italy are also pretty spread out. So most people have got a pretty good distance from other songs that are in their genre. So that gives them an opportunity to shine. The biggest losers for me are Poland and Belgium, the second songs in the first half and the second half. I still think both of them definitely have chances to qualify. If you put forward an amazing package, you can qualify from any slot. As we can see, there's no slot that has a 0% qualification rate. The lowest one is actually 41%, which is still pretty decent. I think this running order is fine. It doesn't fully make sense to me right now, but we haven't seen the staging, we haven't seen the color palettes or the costumes, or what equipment needs to be brought on and off the stage, which they need to maximize time for. We also don't know where the ad breaks are as well. So hopefully when we see the rehearsals of the first semi-final, it'll all make a little bit more sense why they've made these decisions. And we can see once again, the automatic qualifiers have been spread out. Song 5, 11 and 17. Same thing that they did last year. I think just prioritizing these big countries with huge viewing populations, wanting to put them as late as possible so that people wait around, try and increase the viewing figures for semi-final as much as possible. A little bit surprised that Poland are in slot number 2, considering it's the largest country in the semi-finals we saw last year. And just in general, countries with a larger population tend to be a little bit later. Iceland opened the show, setting a new record, the first full non-English song to open the semi-final. Hopefully they can turn that into a qualification. Very good running order for some of the favorites, Sweden being pretty much as late as possible in the first semi-final, and Netherlands in the 15th slot, who I think are currently 5th in the odds. Generally, I think the producers are pretty good at making the most entertaining show possible. And there's always going to be some people who get a better running order and a worse one. That's just the way it is. Okay, that is my analysis of the running order of semi-final number 1. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a similar video for semi-final number 2. So make sure you're subscribed so you get a notification when that video pops up. I'll try and have that done around 24 hours after this one is released. What did you think? Is there anything that you noticed? Are there any delicious stats or trivia or first instances? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you to those who've been supporting me on PayPal and Buy Me Coffee. If you want to support the channel, I'll leave a QR code for you here and a link in the description. And of course, thank you to all my wonderful patrons for patronizing me from all around the world. On my Patreon, you can get early releases, original audio and visuals. You can be in the credits. You can support the channel. Go check it out if you're a fan. But of course, thank you so much just for being here. And I hope to see you on my next Eurovision running order analysis video very, 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 very soon. Goodbye.